れこれはもうストップシェアしていいですか？じゃあ終わる。大丈夫です。はい。
はい、皆さんこんばんは。Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
ちょっと元気がないですね。Good evening, everyone.
こんばんは。
Just to prove that there are people here today,
Okay.
you know, in this room.
This is a beautiful day today.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was supposed to rain and it hasn't, so that just shows you. Yeah. Anyway, hello. My name is Laila Cassim. I will be one of the hosts today. I'm creative director of Shibuya Font and also associate professor at Nara Women's University. And as you can kind of see from my surname, I am Julia Cassim's daughter as well. And today, my partner in crime is here today to host with me.
Yeah. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for also joining this event from online all over the world, not only in Japan, on the YouTube Live. I'm Shinichiro Ito, also co-hosting this event with Laila Cassim-san and Fab Cafe Kyoto. And this event is about sharing the inclusive design history, also Julia Cassim's legacy. So this is relaxing events.
Yeah.
And
not academic.
Not academic too much.
Julia would not like that.
So please smile, please relax, be relaxed, and have to share nice time. And I'm very happy to be with you today. Thank you very much.
And today, the lovely Fab Cafe Kyoto has agreed to host this event with us. And it's one of its organizers. Kinoshita-san would like to share a few 注意事項って英語でなんて言うんだろうね。
Yeah.
皆さんこんばんは。YouTube の方はすいません。ここは少し聞き流してください。会場ファブカフェ京都の木下と言います。今日会場にいらっしゃる皆さんに最初にいくつかアナウンスさせてください。まずですね、今日は一応申し込み上は、もっとたくさんの方がいらっしゃるので、途中からでもいらっしゃった方がいらしたら、椅子前かけたりされますんで、通して、いただけたらと思います。で、会場ですね、トイレが後ろにあります。男女お手洗い一つずつありまして、混んでる時は2階に上がっていただくとそっちにも1箇所なんですけどありますんで、これもトークの間いつでも使っていただいて大丈夫なのでいらしてください。あと今日記録写真を私撮っております。主にプレゼンターの皆さんの写真を撮るんですけれども、会場風景を撮っていますので、もし映り込んだらちょっと困るよっていう方いらっしゃったらお声掛けいただいたら映らないようにする、または映っても使わないようにしますので、いつでも言ってください。はい、会場からは以上です。
So I'll translate quickly.
Hi.
For the international people here, so there will be more visitors, audiences in this event. So there's some still seats and available. And there's a restroom over there in this ground floor, and also there's one in first floor, second floor in Japanese. So you can use it anytime. And also there's Kinoshita-san will be the cameraman for record of this event. So if you don't like to be in the photo, please let us know gently. So yeah, thank you very much. And also here, as you see, now there's a translation to Japanese from English on YouTube Live and here. So please read it carefully, and for speakers, please speak slowly, for this is a machine translation, not by human.
Yes, unfortunately we are relying on the power of AI, but I'm sure it will go well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should kick off, and
Yes.
maybe about the questions as well, the slide do. So because today it's jam-packed, if we ask the audience on mic, it might take we'll be here till tomorrow morning. So if anyone has a question, please read this QR code of Slido, and you can write your questions, and we can pick it up in the second session in the panel discussion corner. So please feel free to write anything you feel or want a question about during the 5 presenters' talks. We'll keep the screen here, so yeah.
Anytime you can read it.
This is okay. So whilst everyone is reading, for everyone online as well, I'm sure many of you here have met or heard about Julia's work, but you probably haven't heard the history of how Julia got to get involved in inclusive design. So, as her now official historian, I think, as her daughter, I would like to introduce kind of Julia's earlier work as well, just as an introduction before our fantastic presenters will provide their stories and insights into Julia's work. So I think we should kick this off with some claps, you know, just to kind of, so everyone just, from now we'll start the event, the footsteps of inclusive design. Okay, so, hi, thank you very much. Yeah, now it feels like an event, huh? Okay, so I'll start from early on. So Julia was born Julia Kathleen Grimble on the 16th of July, 1947, in a small town in Hampshire, England called Gosport. And she was one of 7 children with 4 brothers and 2 sisters. She had an inquisitive eye from a very young age and was said to often dream of the world beyond the shores of this small port town. She would go on to study at Manchester College of Art between 1967 and 70, getting a BA in sculpture and art history, believe it or not. After graduation, she took various jobs, and it was during this time that she would discover her love for travel, which in turn would affect her life in many ways. And so in 1971, she got the MEX scholarship, the Montbouchard scholarship, to study sculpture at the Tokyo University of Arts. Sorry, there's an issue with sharing the screen, so beautiful, yes.
Should be on here.
There we go. So that's Julie as a kid. And yes, believe it or not, she did smoke. And so, yes, she would study at Tokyo University of Arts. And when I asked her, why did you come to Japan? She would say, because I could not imagine what it was like. And I think this shows her inquisitive mind at best. When asked about Geidai, though, she would say it was boring. But going around Tokyo and Japan photographing was great fun, enabling her to analyze the photos she had taken to make sense of the world she saw around her, which was often only in Japanese, which she could not read at the time. And I believe this method is something she also utilized very much in her design career. It was here where she met her husband of 50 years, Monte Cassim, my father, who was studying architecture at Tokyo University. And so Japan became a base to build a family and career. After leaving Geidai, Julia would do various jobs, one of which was working at the New Otani Tokyo as head of training. And she was asked to write an easy-to-use English manual for the Japanese workers, Japanese staff who often couldn't speak English. And it was here she found her love for writing, which she would also later utilize in her career. In 1984, Julia became an art columnist for the Japan Times, and moved to Nagoya in 1985. She worked with the newspaper until 2000. Now with 2 small children, one disabled, Julia soon realized the inaccessibility of museums at the time. She set up Access Vision in 1994, where she would, with Nagoya City Art Museum, together with Nagoya City Art Museum. She would also work with many learning disability organizations such as Mizunoki Gakuen and Tampopo no Ie Nara, exploring the various forms of expression and social engagement through self-expression, curating many exhibitions in both Japan and in the UK. One notable work was Art and the Inner Eye, Kokoro de Miru Bijutsukan, Watashi o Shinjite, in 1998 at Nagoya City Art Museum, where she enabled artworks such as sculptures and paintings which could be touched and explored in through various senses. This exhibition won a prize, and with the prize money, she published Into the Light, Hikari no Naka e, a book documenting and sharing her self-discovered methods as to how to create inclusive museum content. In 1998, she moved to England, UK, and this is where her career truly took off. Her prior inclusive approach and highly viewed work was recognized, and she became a research fellow at Helen Hamlin Research Centre at the Royal College of Art in 2000, a renowned centre for researching and developing inclusive design projects. She established the Challenge workshop program during her 14 years at the centre. First was the DBA Challenge, where design studios would work with various design partners and various design partners with disabilities to create inclusive products and services. The aim of this was to get the business and design world to engage more with people with disabilities through developing inclusive design from the preliminary stages of making. Over several years, the participating teams came up with new forms of products, services, spatial designs, and so much more. It was here where her famous quote was born: "To innovate for the mainstream, you have to understand the extreme." Coinciding with this, she also started the infamous 24-hour design challenge, soon expanding into 48 hours, 72 hours, even 5 days to a week. This format was rolled out in 20 cities in 12 countries with over 700 designers participating, and have influenced many, many more, I feel. I'm sure many of you here today have also participated in it, and I'm sure you have many stories to share. Because of this influential work, she was named one of the 50 most influential people in the world of design by UK Design Week magazine in 2010, and rightly so. In 2014, Julia moves back to Japan and joined the KIT, Kyoto Institute of Technology, where she helped set up the Kyoto Design Lab, where she rolled out many, many innovative programs, such as the Design Research and Residence Program, where cross-discipline design collaborations were encouraged between scientists, craftsmen, weavesmen, and so much more. These projects would soon go on to win the prestigious Red Dot Design Award and the Dutch Design Week Award. Julia stepped back from KIT in 2019, taking a more advisory role, but the program still lives on, and it's continued on by many of her so-called inclusive design disciples. You would think her career would stop here, but no, she continued to develop inclusive workshops, entirely promote the importance of her work of inclusive and collaborative design practices wherever and whenever she could. She would become an advisor for many universities such as Akita University of Arts and Nara Women's University, where she hoped design practices could contribute greatly to regional areas and communities in Japan as well. Her contribution to the design community was immense, and what I described here is only a fraction of her influence and success. So I hope tonight you will get to know some of that through the speakers here tonight. So I'll pass it on to our speakers. Our first speaker is Hua Dong from Brunel Design Research Institute. Hua, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, and Hua will be talking a bit about the challenge design workshop model. So whenever you're ready, Hua, please start.
Thank you, Laila. Thank you. I like the title, The Footsteps of Inclusive Design, very much. My path crossed with Julia's from 2002 and 2006, when we were both working on the iDesign project in a consortium team. I was based in University of Cambridge, and Julia was based in the Royal College of Art. Julia introduced critical users into the design process at the Helen Hamlin Research Center, RCA, to challenge and inspire designers to innovate. Critical users are normally disabled people who are unable to use some products in the same way as able-bodied people, and therefore can challenge conventional mindsets and inspire new critical creations through the lateral creative scenarios they offer. Here you see a picture of Rob, who used his foot to drink tea. Julia remembered my shock when she took me to meet Rob for the first time in the Barclays Bank where he worked. I was not only amazed by how Rob drank tea from a cup, but also the fact that he drove using his foot, and he wore a wristwatch you can see from this picture. I can never forget the moment that moment, it changed my perception as a design researcher. Before this, my research on inclusive design was very much about quantifying design exclusion using data. And since then, I started to pay attention to users and designers and how they work together to improve the inclusivity of design. From 2000 and 2010, Julia introduced critical users and critical user forums to the DBA Inclusive Design Challenge in the UK. I was very lucky to be able to observe the design teams with Julia in the early years. In 2000, it was a trial with smaller user groups, and later it had award ceremonies and engaged more design companies. From 2004 on, the critical user forum model became mature, and Julia and I had written some papers about it. Here are some examples I took from a published paper about earlier outcomes of DBA Inclusive Design Challenge. I vividly remember many of these projects because Julia had taken me to visit those companies and interviewed the designers. Here are some more examples of the design outcomes. You can see the kettle and the bottom. I used that example from Aloe alloy total product design so much in my teaching, and it was a great example to introduce a topic of inclusive design to my students using something they are familiar with. For example, a design team worked with a critical user with no arms in order to reconsider how to design a sticking plaster, as the user could only use his mouth or foot without using his arms or hands. This inspired a brand new, easy-to-use plaster design that could be useful to everyone. I think in Laila's picture, there was an example of that plaster design.
Yes.
Yeah. In 2010, Julia was listed in the Design Week's Hot 50, which described her as bringing together creative communities across the world to work with disabled or aging people, allowing them to understand their needs in order to seek a remedy to them through design. In 2011, we interviewed Julia and included the interview piece in the All Design magazine special issue on inclusive design, which was the first comprehensive introduction to the topic of inclusive design in China. According to Julia, the DBA Inclusive Design Challenge is not about asking designers to design something for a disabled person, but also designers using the insights that disabilities can give them to design better and to design for a wide spectrum of the general population. It's about mainstream design with a functionality required by the disabled person, without of the stigmatizing aesthetic. DBA Inclusive Design Challenge engaged around 40 design companies in the UK and has a lasting impact on the practice of design professionals. I applied the critical user model to teach at Brunel University through Fixperts projects, which involved hundreds of students, and they produced more than 50 Fixperts films to document their inclusive design processes. These projects are often the first time students were able to co-design with a real user. Julia had unique charisma and warmth, which allowed her to work with designers and different clients to develop trust. Almost every one of the designers he worked with had become her friend or even fan, whilst many of the disabled people he worked with had become long-term friends. Peter, in this picture, was one of them. He was a retired teacher, a wheelchair user. In 2019, Julia arranged a visit to Peter while she was visiting Leicestershire in the UK from Japan. Peter was so happy he took time to cook a nice lunch for us. Julia spent at least 15 minutes rearranging Peter's art display corner in his sitting room to create the perfect balance between his artworks and the framed Mount Muji picture he had brought from Japan to Peter. This is Julia in 2014 with my students at Tongji University who worked on Fixperts projects. Julia visited the critical users with the students, and she kept some of the Fixperts videos the students made and often talked fondly about them. This is in 2019, Julia was invited to visit Loughborough University. She talked about inclusive design and sound. And she used Japanese to describe different types of footsteps in terms of sound. This is the last time I met Julia, May 2024. We had tea with Professor Mark Ashby, whom Julia always wanted to meet. We had a wonderful time together. Julia, I will always remember you as a dear friend, a tireless adventurer, a caring mother, and an inspirational, truly passionate activist for inclusive design. I'd like to share with everybody what you said. Onwards and upwards for inclusive design. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hua. Or I actually call Hua Dong, but thank you very much, Hua. I think you started off the talks greatly because there's some of the, I was a high school student when Mum started a career in the UK, so I didn't listen to what she was saying to me, so it was good to know some bits that I've missed out as well. And I think many of us haven't heard in Japan as well. So thank you very much. Right, this is only part 1 of 5, so please feel free to stretch whenever you're, feeling a bit cramped. And please use the Slido to... で、日本語でも大丈夫なので、私たちが通訳するので、はい。So I think onwards and upwards and onwards and forwards, we would like to go with our second presenter, Nataša Perković, who my mother and I met in 2007. Yes. And Nataša is a pioneer in the sense that she started a new phase of inclusive design, which was with working with sheltered workshops. And Nataša would like to share her story of how she got to work with Julia with sheltered workshops in Bosnia and Croatia. So take it away, Nataša.
Thank you so much, Laila. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd like to thank Shinjiro Ito, Laila Cassim, Kinoshita-san, Fab Cafe for organizing the event and hosting us. Also, thank you to Professor Hua Dong, to Lígia Lopes, Gero Grundmann, and Hirai for joining. My name is Nataša Perković. I'm a product designer from Sarajevo. I'm an assistant professor of design at the Academy of Fine Arts in Sarajevo and creative director of a furniture company called Goes. So I met Julia in 2007, as Laila said, and this was 17 years ago. Julia was working at the Royal College of Art Helen Hamlin Center for Design at the time, and I proposed to her that we do an inclusive design workshop in Sarajevo. I had been in contact with sheltered workshops to produce some of my student work. Sheltered workshops are workshops employing people with disability trained in crafts. And these workshops in Bosnia are remnants of the former socialist Yugoslavian state, where people with disabilities attended special vocational schools and worked in specialized sheltered workshops.
Just to translate, sheltered workshops in Japanese are shogai fukushi sagyōshos. So the same type that we have in Japan.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Laila. So we had a war in our country in the 1990s. Many of you are young and don't maybe know about it. And we went from being a socialist to a democratic state. And in this transition, sheltered workshops gradually lost their benefits that were guaranteed by the state. So in 2007, when I contacted Julia, they were on the brink of bankruptcy. I had the idea of creating a new way of working with the sheltered workshops, where craftspeople with disabilities would work together with designers to create new products that were more appealing to the market. A very simple idea. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity not only for the sheltered workshops, but also for young designers like myself. I had read about Julia's pioneering work online, and I had the crazy idea of emailing her and asking her to do a project. And she answered immediately and said yes. She saw the very difficult circumstances as an opportunity to do good work. And I must say, she was very brave to trust me, a 24-year-old with no working experience, no institutional affiliation, and not many people in her position would have done the same. So, Julia, my colleague, Josip Lovrenović, and I started to work on the new model of the Sarajevo Sheltered Workshop. Needless to say, we came across many challenges. Some of my professors and some of Julia's colleagues questioned if our project fit into the definition of what inclusive design is, because we didn't aim to create inclusive products. However, we were very open to widening this definition. For us, this was inclusive design because our work process was participatory and because our aim was social inclusion. We also came across a lethargy amongst the people, the disabled craftspeople working in the sheltered workshops. They did not believe that a change for the better was possible. But then they met Julia. The Sarajevo workshop was made possible only due to Julia's personality and her professional methodologies. She knew how to identify the decision makers and the stakeholders and get them on board with the project. She stated a case that was very rational, and she did it very directly. Julia used diplomacy, like baking a cake and bringing it to a meeting. She called this her cake diplomacy, and it's very famous amongst her design students. But she also knew when to take out her katana, when to have the difficult conversations, and that these very unpleasant moments are just moments and a normal part of the work process. Julia had the most beautiful approach to people. She always spoke to people personally. She asked many questions to try to understand what would motivate people. And something as simple as, looking people in the eye and taking notes instead of recording a meeting or doing a Zoom meeting helped people open up to her and her ideas. So, we put together a team of about 50 people, including professional designers from the RCA, from the UK and various countries, professional designers from Bosnia and neighboring countries of former Yugoslavia, so Serbia and Croatia, design teachers, design students, craftspeople with disabilities, and sheltered workshop management. The British Council in Bosnia supported us with a small grant. However, this was just to cover expenses, so everyone volunteered their time and expertise. Julia ran a 7-day workshop in which the design teams were to come up with prototypes of products. And then we developed the prototypes into final products over the course of 1 month. The products were exhibited in Bosnia and in the region, sold in local and regional shops, and online, which was something new at the time, believe it or not. These are all our amazing project participants, and I would like to say hello to them in case anyone is joining online. And a group of them, one team, worked with Pismolik, a printing company employing deaf people. Together, the team developed Superlik, a new brand. So, Superlik products stopped being sold after a while. But the project left a very important mark in Pismolik. Their employees decided to take the fate of their company into their own hands, to learn new skills, to, become competitive in the market. And today, they are a very successful company.
So they became a kind of subsidized workshop into a kind of almost design company, production company.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they did receive some subsidies, as do all companies in Bosnia now, finally, that employ disabled people.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, Laila. Another team worked with the Center for Self-Reliance. And this is a contemporary disability center where people come to do art therapy. And this team decided to focus on the amazing leatherwork of Damir Husseinović and to pair that with the hand painting of silk that all of the other members knew how to do. So the team created Moja Torba, a series of bags made of leather and silk that could be worn with the leather on the outside or the silk on the outside, depending on the weather or your mood. A third team worked with Librag, a metal workshop employing deaf people, and they came up with a series of giant lamps like this one. It's bigger than me even. Street furniture made of sheet metal and wood, and a street ashtray encased in the pavement.
Yeah, about 90% of Bosnia's population, as I remember, smoked at the time.
At the time, yeah, it was a very good product for our city and all our cities. So, thanks to the network of people who took part in our project, the model of the Sarajevo Sheltered Workshop was transferred to countries in the region. Over the course of about 10 years, Julia led workshops in 5 cities. And hundreds of people took part. It was amazing. Craftspeople with disabilities were empowered creatively, socially, economically. Designers were empowered too, and they learned about inclusive design. And what was very important for Julia was that we worked on a basis of equality and mutual benefits. We really learned from each other a lot. For many of the disabled craftspeople, it was the first time that they had worked with a designer, and also the other way around. We questioned the status quo, as Julia loved to say, and loved to do. And we came up with new ways of working and new ways of seeing ourselves. Some sheltered workshops did not, in the end, continue their projects, but that's okay. Because we had a very large and well-connected network in place. People continue to collaborate, and we still do, so no energy is lost. And as Julia would say, once again, onwards and upwards. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Natasha. It's good to know the background of how it was established, because as one of the designers participating, I was told nothing. My mother just told me, come to Sarajevo. It wasn't like, why? Just come. And so...
Not many people would have come if they knew the details.
So I am her daughter. And I also saw many similarities with Japan, I feel, as well, and I'm sure the audience did, so it was a great insight. And now I would like to introduce one of the, workshop. I mean, Gero, you participated in about how many workshops? 6, 7, 8? About 60% of these workshops that Natasha probably described. So Gero is going to share with us a first-hand experience of what it was like as a then commercial designer working in, participating in these workshops. So please take it away, Gero.
Thank you very much, Laila, and thank you also to Natasha for the lovely introduction to the context of everything, of the workshops, and introducing, what Julia was also like at these workshops, and when she was diplomatic, when she was getting the katana out, and all of these things. I met Julia Cassim as a research associate at the Helen Hamlin Center for Design, and she said that she'd had this phone call from email from this design student in Sarajevo. In a tricky situation, but who believed that design could help. So this was my introduction to the workshops. That design student is now the professor you've just heard a minute before, Natasha. So sorry. Oh no. Oh, what's it doing? Apologies for this. Apologies. Where are we?
And Gero also worked on the Superlick project that Natasha introduced, and I was also participated with the Superlick team. So that's how we know each other, and got through the 7-day workshop, as I say.
Sorry, I'm very sorry about the. Okay,
no problem.
Yeah, very good. Bit tricky. Anyway, what were these workshops about? Predominantly about people, of course, and about creating a safe space for designing together. And the people we designed with, and here's a picture of Sarajevo, this fascinating city, full of history, but also full of former conflicts, identities, and different cultures. People are always embedded in culture, and so if you come as a designer into this situation, you have to be very aware, that you're entering maybe a completely different space, and that the way you have led your life so far, the rules that you think, your life is led by, may not apply. So it's really important to be open when you're going into these situations, and to have question yourself as well as to who you are. And there was one thing that Julia Cassim always mentioned to me, the thing to avoid was the UFO effect, because if you're coming into this new situation as a designer and people know that you may have studied at the Royal College of Art or been at the Helen Hamlin Center for Design, there's this weight of expectation, both on you as a designer, of coming in like a UFO and doing all of these amazing things and then leaving again. And then people in the place will be left wondering, well, what do we do now? So this is the thing to be avoided. So in inclusive design, what Julia really promoted, and what I'm always keen to foster as well, is to enable people to shift the mindset in the designer and in the people from me to we. So here on the left, you may see the author, the me, or the Julia Cassim, or the Nataša, the initiator of a workshop. But the key thing is to become a community of practice, a group of people, with a flat hierarchy, speaking and designing at eye level, and combining all those different abilities and all those different visions into one thing, into a greater, more inclusive image of the world, and more interesting things to do. So what we wanted to achieve in the workshops was an atmosphere, a safe space where everyone can contribute. And in building these teams, Julia was fantastic at getting together people also of different age groups to overcome this idea that, or this way of workshops that sometimes happen where you have one group of people, maybe in one age group, and they're very good at designing for themselves and for their own, perspective on the world, but they're maybe not so good yet at designing for their future selves or for people who are, at the extreme edges of society, who have different abilities, and who are maybe not as visible as they are. So bringing together different ages, different cultures, different abilities and perspectives, this was really, really essential and really at the heart of the workshops in Sarajevo, in Croatia, for example, and in all the other places. And in this safe space, what we wanted to create was a mix of, let's say, structure and mess, giving people a structure that showed them, well, this is what we're hoping to do, not telling them about, we want a fixed outcome, like a bag, for example, or like something else. We didn't know what was going to happen at the end, but to structure everybody's ideas and to also take stock to assess what people were doing already. Because if you're in the same place, in the same workshop, doing the same things all the time, then you become blind to all the skills you already have and all the things you can already do. And then once we collect everything that's been happening so far, we can also progress on that basis and experiment and, have more fun processes, be messier. And that's a good thing. And Julia was a keen observer and instilled this in me as well. And I'm going to speak about process a bit. And here we were at the metal workshop that Nataša kindly mentioned, where from Freddie, a colleague who worked with them, I heard that they said, hey, we're great at welding. Let's do welded products. And so everybody said, okay, show us, let's weld together. And they welded things, and I thought, well, maybe you're not so good at welding. What are you, and found out, well, everybody's really, really good at bending metal and doing things like that. And so what we realized was that in that situation, the place needed to look afresh at what they were doing. And so instead of doing rain troughs and, building site equipment in metal, we're using folding for other means. And so they developed these wonderful folded stools and many other things that really highlighted the skills they had, but in a new and more designerly way. What we are also amazed to see in the workshops was a change in the mindset of the beneficiaries, of the people working there, from being given things to do to actually initiating things themselves, to saying, hey, with pride, I did this. So here, for example, we were at this fabric workshops where before people were given, let's say, a design of a heart and they had to follow it, and stitches and embroidery. And we said, well, if we don't give you a design to fill in, but just a grid, and you can make up what you stitch, what you embroider. And then the beneficiaries in the workshop started to do their own designs, from boats and houses to abstract designs and everything, which we then turned into jewelry and patterns for fabrics, etc. Many things. But the thing that you notice on this slide in the top two pictures in the center, there's the signature of Gordana. And this was the first time that this beneficiary of the workshop signed her work. And it just shows the pride because she invented something herself and she did something that she enjoyed doing. And so she took ownership of the process. And this is really, really important. So if we're talking about products, what are the products that can come out of a process like this? They don't have to be complicated, but if you, for example, if you may only be able to press your fingers into clay or do simple physical movements, then that's enough to make things. So we made these wonderfully patterned jewelry pieces, brooches, where you can see the impressions of fingernails or the impressions of recycled cardboards, where we were using waste materials, making more of waste to create new things. And we also thought about how we can create products that provide income for the workshops without creating an extra burden on the workshops, without giving people unnecessary things to do. So we thought about what products could be and came up with different categories. Products made by the beneficiaries of the workshop, like these brooches. Products that could be made by the beneficiaries together with their staff. And this jewelry, for example, on the left you see a fully finished piece, but this is very complicated and takes a long time. And so we said, well, together you could also make jewelry pieces in components and give people components to put together themselves. Much easier to do, much faster, and less work, less burden for the workshop. And then we could take things a step further and make products inspired by the work of the beneficiaries. Here we have this wonderful little brooch, embroidered brooch of a watermelon, but that watermelon could also be transferred into a drawing, become a wallpaper or a pattern, easily done. And so you can spread the work, which brought us to the idea of also licensing products. And everyone in these workshops has their own character, and this is symbolized here by the handwriting of Ines, one of the participants, which we turned into a font that is digitized and available for use. So these are the products that are the outcomes, and what Julia Cassim was really keen on saying is that these products shouldn't be sold as products made by people with disabilities. That's not the primary communication we should do. But they should be sold and they should be bought because they're good design. And they're good design because they're made by the people who have ownership of the process and to do something based on things they like doing and doing them in a new productive way with a flatter hierarchy. And as you can see in the bottom left picture, these designs gained some interesting fans. Anyway, all of this also was accompanied by designing new identities for the workshops. And if people were brave enough to take on this new, more inclusive design approach and wanted to push it forward, they could do it with a new identity. And if things worked out, they could go with the new identity. And if things didn't work out, they could fall back on their old. So no energy was lost, like Nataša was saying, and people can always move forward. We have to remember, we have to play an active role. The world we design designs us back. And it would be great if we could make it inclusive. So again, yet again, onwards and upwards, like Julia Cassim would say.
Thank you very much, Gero. It's amazing how all three of you just use onwards and upwards. It's like I think we should start making an onwards and upwards t-shirt and sell it,
Onwards and upwards product series.
Yes, and I think we can design it maybe either with Ines's font or maybe even Shibuya font if you would allow me. Thank you very much. And just to say, Gero and I worked on many of these projects together. The two projects he showed, we worked with together, as Gero as the team leader and me as the sub-leader. And as you can see from the work, this had influenced me as well personally to develop the Shibuya font project. which many of you might know. If not, please check it out. It's pretty good, I would say. I'm being modest, maybe. But yeah, no, it was a great insight to how you felt as a designer, Gero. So thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking with you more at the panel discussion. So thanks a lot. Yeah. Sorry, we might have some technical problems. So in this, I think everyone, it's been pretty stressful, so I think we should all stretch, maybe. ちょっと体操しませんか？はい。So, put your arms up at people at home as well, on YouTube. So for 10 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and breathe out. So breathe in, 息吸って、high stretch, and breathe out, 息吐いて。ちょっとこれでリラックスしたかな？ All relaxed, and we're still waiting. So I think in the meantime we can just have a bit of a break. And people at home, if you want to go to the toilet, make a cup of tea, maybe for people in Europe, it's morning time, isn't it? So we'll be back in 5 minutes or so. So はい、皆さんリラックスしてちょっと5分間休憩しましょう。Also, there are some of the publications of the Sarajevo project, the Challenge Design Workshop, and Julia's books at the table there. So if any of you want to have a look, please do. 入り口側の机にこれまで、ナタシャとゲロ、フワドンさんが言っていたチャレンジワークショップだったり、サラエボの時に作った冊子なども今日持ってきているので、ぜひご覧ください。あとはジュリアさんの、書籍もあるので、ちょっとお暇な時にぜひ見てください。あとね、皆さんこの間に質問があったら、ぜひスライドゥの方で書いてくれればありがたいです。質問は全然日本語でも大丈夫なので気にせずぜひ書いてください。こうやってね観客も巻き込んじゃうっていうね私の無理やりな性格もちょっと母に似てるのかな。You know, technicalities are always an issue, so I think it's good advice from Natasha when she said that Julia often came with a notebook. ね、ちょっとテクノロジーが今ちょっと罪を犯しているというか、ナタシャさんのパソコンがうまく 起動してないようなので、先ほどナタシャさんがね、やっぱりジュリアはいつもノートを持って会議に行ってたって言ってましたけど、これもいい学びなんじゃないかなって思います。パソコンはね、決して人の味方をしてくれるわけではないので、皆さんもぜひこのうちに思ったことをノートだったり書いたりするといいかもしれませんね。I think we are ready. So, anyone reading the books, if you'd like to join us, and anyone in the toilet, sorry, we'll start without you. So next we would like to travel from Bosnia and Croatia to Portugal, where Mum forced another person to do a design workshop. I shouldn't say forced, I should say proposed. And who accepted the challenge very greatly. So this is Lígia Lopes from Portugal. Please take it away.
Don't do it before I start. Hello, my name is Lígia Lopes. I come from Portugal. I'm a professor, I'm industrial designer and a professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts in Porto University. And we have more or less the same history, and I felt that some of the things that I have prepared, they are already Gero, Laila, and Nataša, and also Hua are already told about Julia. But I will talk a little bit about my experience working with her. I have took a few projects, but I hope in the future we can manage this kind of information for all around the world. So I contacted Julia. I didn't contact directly. I was a little bit ashamed of it. And I contacted Ellen Hamlin Center, and suddenly someone sent me an email and telling me that when you want to come to London, Julia Cassim will receive you, but she have to schedule that meeting. And I went there and I asked Julia if she can help me with my maybe supervising my PhD. I already heard about her job and all the activities and the shelter workshops. And she said, look, no, I propose. And she said, no, because I travel a lot and it will be very difficult. But you know what? I have a proposal for you. And if you want, I can go to Porto and Portugal and run a 24 hours inclusive design challenge. And I look, oh, what? I proposed her, and she said, no, what I'm going to do? Yes, I'll do it. And a few weeks later, we start a few meetings, and with a huge checklist. You have to do this, and you have to contact municipality, and I have to go to Portugal and see all the facilities. Well, you have to manage. And I said, well, yes, I'll do it. And a few months later, I think I've worked 6 months in advance to make 24 hours happens, and it was very difficult, but it went very well, and the British Council liked it very much, and they invite us to come along to Lisbon in the next year, and we repeated not the same model but a 24 hours challenge, but we work with different kind of peripheral communities and people with disabilities, museums, the municipality. Well, it was a different receipt in the end, but I think it went very well, and the British Council starts to support us. And it went so well that the municipality invited me in 2013 to run and coordinate 3 studies based on accessibility of contents. One of them was about the St. George Castle and the city museums, and I was really scared about that. And I called Julia. And she said, you know what, you should come to, she was like that, you should come to meet me in London. And we'll have a meeting, and we go to the British Museum, and
Yeah. She never tells you to do something, she suggests it. But it's almost like an order,
Yes.
so you have to take the
I will talk about this later. And she should come. Yes, I go. Next month? Okay. And and well, she understand what is the point of this studies, and she came to Lisbon. Well, I'm from Porto. Is 3 hours by car, and she was somewhere, and she said, maybe I can go to Lisbon and help you to find out, maybe manage a survey, and well, and she started to prepare the preface of the studies. And she really adapted herself to the, and I had this beautiful picture and photographs of her in the castle, just trying to figure out how to help me. And of course, trying to deal with this kind of interface is not well designed, and in some museums in Portugal. In 2000, 1 year later, she invited me to come, and it was my first time. We have 10 years of Inamatsuri, and she invited me to come, and also Natasha, you didn't come, but also you.
But we worked with the students.
Yeah, you work with the students, and I proposed to Julia to work with children with special education needs and craftsmen people, and also a school who work with bilros lace in the curriculum. Well, of course, designers help me a lot because we have to manage a few things, and it is our designer Laila who produces this.
Yes, I seem to appear in all the projects, but I swear it's a subtraction.
Also, Laila participated with it. Was this project was the four ladies, me, Natasha, you, and Julia.
Yeah,
it was made for
four of us together.
Yes, and to summarize, in the drawing workshops with the children, I asked them to represent some typical dishes and some displays of the Inamatsuri festival. Some of the workshops are in the sushi restaurant in Lisbon, another one in the music school, and the first one went to in the Gulbenkian Foundation. So they came with this, and designers, and also Mr. Antero helped me to find a way to represent the drawings. This is in filigree, it's a technique very well known in Porto. So some of the dishes, and then Antero came with this. I have a few photos of Julia wearing this necklace. So it was a mix of co-creation, but also individuality of all of us, not at the same time, because it was impossible, because I was in Porto, some of them also in Porto, and other ones in Lisbon. That school came with this fabric, and it was a proposal of packaging. And then we present on February on 2014 on Chimadai Gallery.
Just to clarify, this is based on a picture of chirashi.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also collaborate with the oldest brush shop in Porto, and I thought it was a great idea because I remember that brushes in Kyoto is also a topic. And this is Terezinha brushes. And 1 year later, what are you going to do in July? I'm coming. Where? You're coming to Sheffield. And she runs a workshop, inclusive the design challenge, also in Sheffield, working with people with Parkinson's disease and carers. One year later, no. On that year, later, in November, I asked her to come to Porto and run this workshop with about wearables, playful wearables. And also during those days, she had the opportunity to present her role in activism in the municipality, and also integrated in that conference, but it was an open lecture for the municipality team. It was a great moment to see her in my city present her work. This was the final presentation of the projects, and we share also me, Natasha and Gero, and please Gero, if you want to say after something in you, Natasha. Laila went there. No.
Finishing my PhD, so couldn't make this one, unfortunately.
We went to Croatia, Požega. It's a small city in the middle of snow that February, and we went for 1 week, 7 days. We received a lot of information about history and also, and it was a European Commission funded project coordinated by British Council Croatia also, and she took 21 designers from Germany, Netherlands, Sarajevo, Bosnia, Macedonia, Portugal, and UK, and we are all together in the same design hotel, we call, because it was full of designers, and every morning the team, all the 4 teams are running to the workshops, and we are divided in 4 teams. We don't work together well. I think the project consisted in creating products that could be produced by the community, including people with disabilities, and also the schools, because they have practical schools, and the idea is the income could go to the organization of the children with disabilities. Julia worked with the drawing team in that association. The teams are divided in wood team, my team, the printed textiles, the constructed textiles where Natasha was, and the communication and packaging where Gero was coordinating.
Yeah.
My team chose the waste of a big company of furniture. I will not call it design, but furniture.
A furniture company's waste.
Yes, yeah. And we are all together now. In the end of the day, all putting ideas together and talking about the project. We have a meeting all the afternoons before we came to the design hotel.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have I have to say that we didn't have Wi-Fi in that time in Croatia.
This workshop did not have, and the designers had access to no internet, so no Google, nothing.
Yeah, and we didn't. We are like outside and outside, double outside, because we can't communicate. If you don't communicate too much with outside, you work. And every night after we met again for dinner in Design Hotel. We worked together. And the teams worked on different products. And my team also worked with others people of the community. They try to explain us some type of games they used to play when they are young. And we work with that stick that we arrange on that waste materials, and we call it Pojega stick. Well, and Natasha team came with these slippers, this bag, and also a typeface that I think Maya from Macedonia ran for 1 week to do this incredible work. And the printed textiles work on this also. In 1 week, we dropped our personal projects, and under Julia's guidance, we built a result with that community can run and materialize it, prototype it, and present it to the community. She always have a great and strategic sense of communication with and for people in different levels and layers. She was able to create empathy in so different culture. That's what I most like on her, because she can change the context, people, and she was able to communicate with everybody. In the end of the week, we present to the community, the slide before, we present to community including priests and
priests.
Yeah,
oh.
Including Croatia is very important. Yeah, and talking about the work I've developed together, it's very emotional to me to talk about it. Of course, I think it's emotional for all of us. It only can be represented in the form of preservation, keeping in my way, our way to acting and critically considering the project and design, and I'm sure, and this moment honors a legacy and our friendship. I didn't have that sentence because I'm always thinking of her telling me, "That's my girl." Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Lígia. Yes, I think that, certainly she had a way of kind of building instant friendships with designers and people in the community throughout her projects. And I think you just lit a fire in me, Lígia, to continue this work on. So thank you very much. And so I think now, if you stopped your screen, Lígia, thank you. Oh gosh. Yeah, time flies when you have a lot of information and presentations. And now we would like to, as Lígia said, about preservation. And well, until now we've been talking about the context of abroad. But now I'd like to move to Japan, where Professor Yasuyuki Hirai, also known as Yas to many abroad, has continued on this work of inclusive designers and has become a renowned kind of practitioner who has carried on Julia's teachings and expertise. So I would like to pass the mic to Yas, who will now share his 25 years of inclusive design experience in Japan. So take it away, Yas.
Hi, good evening. Hi. So thank you for the introduction. Yep. So now I'm going to talk about 25 years in Japan. But actually, I realized that, my name is Yasuyuki Hirai, and I'm a professor at the Faculty of Design in Kyushu University. So I'm going to talk about, so I think you already heard lots of stories about Julia, and my slides are like a review from Japanese point of view. And I would like to talk about how inclusive design is adapted into Japanese context. So that's the kind of purpose of my slides. So this is the first slide. So already you got the information those from Julia and other presenters. So she came to Japan in 1971, Tokyo University of Arts, and married with Monte. And at 1984 till 1998, she became an art columnist for the Japan Times. And 1985, Laila was born at the time. And so she started her career as an art columnist. And so then she went into museum experience. So this is a quote from her what she said in 1992. So she said, I published a scathing critical column about
scathing, I think it's scathing.
Scathing, thank you. Scathing critical column about the Nagoya Art Museum's exhibition in the Japan Times. And the director of the museum saw it and offered me the job of running the exhibition 2 years later. So I think that's Julia. So she's a very energetic person. And so always she expresses herself without any hesitation. So this characterizes her character very much. So I like this phrase. So next, in 1995, because the success of the exhibition, in 1994, she formed an NPO Access Vision that connects visually impaired people with art museums. And 1998, she published Into the Light. And this is a great book about the museum experience design. And I think this is already inclusive design started before the start of the inclusive design. And so the red part, I put red color, is in Japan. And the blue color is color she acted in EU and in UK. So she moved to UK, and so she became the senior research fellow at the Helen Hamlin Research Center. Later, it is called now Helen Hamlin Center for Design. But at that time, Helen Hamlin Research Center was the name. And but she frequently coming to Japan because her husband, Monte, became the president of APU, Asia Pacific University in Beppu. So they lived in Beppu, so I could see her in Beppu. So he was the president from 2004 until 2009. And so next. So here the inclusive design official history starts with the Helen Hamlin Research Center Foundation in 1999. And 2000 DB Design Challenge started. So, and so she was quite busy, but she, as I said, she frequently coming to Japan. So I asked her to do the first seminar about inclusive design in Kyushu University. And so this is the poster our student made. This is the first poster made in 2004. And who is ordinary person? Diversity is ordinary. So I like this poster very much. And as you see, Julia looks quite young, beautiful. So next. So at that time, everybody, the universal design was very trendy that time. And so people ask me, what is inclusive design? Why don't you call it universal design? So it was a very hard time for us. So I felt very lonely to advocate inclusive design. However, because of the because of the Julia's existence, Julia's energy, we could make inclusive design go forward in Japanese context. So, luckily enough, 2006, Tampopo no Ie in Nara Prefecture, Mr. Harima and their staff came to us and to publish the first inclusive design handbook in 2006. And they said the reason why. So they do able art activities in a social art field. And Mr. Harima believed that inclusive design will be very important activity next to able art activities in art field. So inclusive design in the design field. So that's why we could make this handbook. And 2006 was a big change year for the Japanese inclusive design because the 48-hour inclusive design challenge was held at the second international conference for universal design in Kyoto. So this was quite a big international conference. And so Julia did the 40-hour inclusive design challenge together with IAUD designers. And so she invited 5 designers from UK as listed here. And at the time, I thought, okay, 48-hour inclusive design challenge. Can we sleep? Yeah.
No.
No. Yeah, so I like the phrase 48 and sometimes 72. So I think serious people might think that there is no sleep during that time. But anyway, all the participants worked so hard during the 48 hours and the 72 hours. Anyway, so it was quite successful. So inclusive design became one kind of activity approach people already got to know. So after that, 2010 until 2012, we had a very good opportunity to establish a kind of core group for the inclusive design together with Kyoto University and the Keio University. So from Kyoto University, Professor Shiose worked with us, and Professor Mizuno from Keio University, now in KIT, worked with us. So we did inclusive design now at the Tokyo Middletown Design Hub in 2010. And the next year, inclusive design now in Kyoto University Museum. And 2012, inclusive design now in the I School of Tokyo University. So it was lucky for us to know Hiroshi Tamura, who led the I School in Tokyo University. So they advocated design thinking. So it was a good opportunity for us to fuse with those people. And same time, Julia was working so hard for the design challenge workshops all over the world, I think. In Japan, of course, she did. And she did 2012 and 2013 in Fukuoka, like this. Anyway, so we prepared inclusive design book because we wanted to write a book together. And so there was an opportunity for us to write a book. So we published Inclusive Design in 2014. And Julia wrote another book, Idea Generation, named Inclusive Design, in the same year from the different publisher. And so those books are quite successful. And the Inclusive Design book was in a top 100 up until recent years in the product development books in Amazon.
They're still on sale, by the way.
Yes.
If any of you
Still on
don't
sale.
have it.
Yeah. So an interesting thing happens that year 2014. So Nikkei Design made a special feature issue about the design thinking. And in that magazine, they recommended 8 books to understand design thinking. And our inclusive design book was mentioned as one of the 8. So until that time, I felt, inclusive design is in relation with the universal design. But this Nikkei design, I start to notice that, okay, so inclusive design is in the context of design thinking and social innovation. So this was quite a big change for me for the perception of the inclusive design. So from 2014, as you see, so she came back from UK to Japan and became the professor at the D-Lab. So she did lots of projects and Kyoto Design Lab because it was her kind of creation base for inclusive design in Japan. So it worked quite well. So those are the summary of the timeline what happened. So 2006 was a big year to fuse with the universal design, and people started to know about inclusive design. And 2014, Julia returned to Japan, and we published books. So that was a kind of second wave. So now I want to summarize. So my kind of impression about Julia's inclusive design, style and characters. So she tried to provoke our mindset. So she took lots of pictures, and those pictures are so excellent to depict the social issues. And the second, she created design challenge. And now everybody knows about design, inclusive design workshop, but that prototype is from the DBA design challenge, I think. Yep. And also she fostered design partners to be creators. So designers doesn't have to do the designers in the project. I think that participants and people with a disability and other diversity of people are also creators. So Julia fostered those people to be creators for the sustainable progress of the inclusive design. That was so important. So finally, she lived life with activism. So from this aspect, I would like to respect her and follow the way. So at the end, I would like to show some slides what Julia used. Because Julia came to inclusive design lectures almost 10 years. Every autumn, she comes to Kyushu University to teach inclusive design. So I'm going to show you quickly 4 slides, which I like very much.
Which I've also probably seen because I used to translate her Japanese translations. Presentation.
Right. So I do this under the permission of Laila. So this one, so if the visually impaired person walk straight, then he will be hit by the bollard. So this is actual photograph in Osaka. So wow, we are shocked to see this picture. And this is about the story. So she talks about the first typewriter designed by Italian Pellegrino. Also, she talked about the love in between the inventor and his friend who is blind. And so the story was quite interesting and touching. And also this picture, I like this. So those feet are brothers, and so all different. So this picture depicts the diversity quite well. No explanation necessary.
Yeah, so this is her brother, the feet of her brother and sisters. So they're the same race, from the same parents, but when you look at their feet, they're completely different.
Yeah, great. And finally, this is the very
most famous one.
famous picture taken in Dublin. So she's advocated 6 different exclusions, and 5 different exclusions are within this photograph. So first one is a physical exclusion, and the second is digital exclusion because she's not so tall. And the third is economic exclusion, and because that female person needs money, and also cognitive exclusion because she cannot speak English, and emotional exclusion because she feels maybe lonely or excluded. So those 5 exclusions are illustrated in this picture, and so I think this picture is kind of a very important picture for inclusive design. And the 6th one, which is missing here, is the sensory exclusion, like visually impaired. Anyway, so we learned a lot from Julia. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, it's very interesting how in Europe and in the UK, Julia's approach was taken very practically in the design field, but in Japan it came through this kind of theoretical route first, which then went into practice. So that was a really interesting insight. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm tired. ちょっと疲れましたね。もうあまりにも情報過多で。So I think we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 7:50, so that will be 11:50 GMT time. Yeah, I reckon. But anyway, 10 minutes, guys. So we'll have a short break, and then I think we'll rearrange the place and go do a panel discussion for the remaining hour. So thank you very much, everyone. Guys, unfortunately the event is not over yet. 皆さんまだ、
こんにちは。じゃあ、
はい、まだイベントの中盤戦か3分の後半戦というか、まだあと3分の1残ってますので、ね、ちょうど。
はい。もう少し皆さんと最後にイベント後にお話しする時間も
あるので、はい。
はい。でもここに集まっていただいた皆様のコミュニティは本当に貴重なものだと思っております。
It's nice everyone's chatting away during the break.
Yeah.
They're not quite having a break.
Yeah.
はい。
Refresh.
So to kick off the panel discussion, Yes has actually kind of prepared a slide for us.
Yes. So, may I?
Yeah.
Right.
So from now on, the part 2 will start from a special message from UK, and Professor Hirai will introduce the message.
Hi. Okay, so I got a message from Roger Caleman, Emeritus Professor of Inclusive Design. So I want to share his message with you. So you can read through the text on the slides. I will mention it. So Julia was all about thinking outside the box. And if we don't want to put people in boxes, we need to think in terms other than user needs and capabilities. This is what Julia understood and taught and inspired. Aspiration for her inclusive design was and is all about what people want out of life. What inspired her passion was, from the very beginning, the burning desire that Laila and Shan to have enough access to all they want out of life. And what drove her on, the source of her seemingly boundless energy, was the conviction that by working together, designers and extraordinary users could come up with the innovative, enabling, and aspirational ideas that would challenge complacent thinking about ability and disability. The vehicle for this inspirational interaction was the design challenge, a format she perfected, made her own, and internationalized, far beyond its design age origins at the RCA. That was Julia, unforgettable, hard to manage, with the mind of her own, so rewarding to work with and inspiring to others. Yeah, that's all great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Roger. I hope he's listening or will listen to this broadcast. By the way, Roger was her boss, hence he wrote, "She's difficult to manage," because she obviously came up with such imaginative left field ideas that he as a boss had to kind of find a way to, Anyway, so I think that gives a really good insight into actually one of the questions, which was why did Julia start this approach, which I think is answered in Roger's question, Roger's statement. And there's another one which is I think this is to all the people who have presented today. So if Hua and Gero, if you're there, if you could turn your cameras and mics on to join us. Hello again.
Sure.
Thanks for bearing with us. So there's a question from someone saying, thank you for introducing such inspiring projects. in your project, was there a moment when the trial phase transformed into maturity? So from a workshop phase into an actual practice or design practice, or kind of more, how do you say, a sustainable way of working? And if so, where was it? So I don't know if it can be about how it inspired your work, maybe as academics, teachers and designers, you know, how it moved on from the phase of when you worked with her. So Hua, would you like to start off?
Thank you. I think in my slides, I mentioned those earlier 4 years. In 2000, it's a trial, and after 2 years, in about 2004, it's become matured. I think, because it's a long time ago, 20 years ago, the earlier stage is just a few critical users were involved in those forums, in those challenges, and it's not necessarily formalized. So it's a trial to bring the critical users with the design practitioners. And when it's matured, it's become a critical user forum. Is it too loud?
No, sorry, there's someone opening a packet of crisps behind, so I'm just telling them, just wait a minute, sorry, carry on.
Thank you. It's become a critical user forum, so it's not only just one type of critical users, there are actually a few different types of critical users in the same forum, so they sometimes do have conflicting needs, aspirations, and then designers working with this forum to challenge their own design thinking. And also, it's no longer just about informing the design brief. It's also about bringing business case in it, you know, thinking about commercialization, and then designers receive awards, etc. So it's from an earlier involvement to the later more comprehensive debate, and then designers actually see value from different aspects. That is my interpretation of from initial 12 stage to a later mature stage. And then this model, as Roger Caleman said, you know, it's beyond the age, design age, and it's internationalized. So the model has taken off really in many other countries. In my talk, I said I've applied this critical user forum, critical user concept into my teaching. It's worked extremely well. I actually used this not only in Brunel University, it was used in Tongji University, in Loughborough University, and it's just so engaging for design students to work with the users, work on a real life brief, and they always find a way to find their critical user. So it's a very engaging model to bring designers and make them passionate about working with users. Thank you.
Thanks, Hua. I think we forgot to mention in all the presentations about how Julia used to say that you always have to have an emotional case and a business case. And I think what you're saying is you need that balance. And also the designers critically assessing their own prejudgments and the process that they've used, that they use, as well as as I think Nataša also said in her talk, how the critical users, the design partners, also question themselves, and if their way of thinking is enabling or disabling their, progression. So I think that leads on to Gero, who I think you worked as a commercial designer. You worked in more commercial projects before joining these projects. So what was the kind of impact for you?
Yes, I mean, I after leaving the Royal College, I was at the Helen Hamlin Center for a year, and then started my own studio, which is now joined with that of my wife, Julia Lohmann, and I was also teaching. So I think the influence that Julia Cassim had, your mom had on, my practices, was really broad in that whenever I was teaching, I would make sure to include an inclusive design seminar in my teaching. Even with undergraduate students, just to familiarize them with the concepts of what's going on, but to also make things practical. And I did that in the UK, and then later in Germany, and now in Finland as well. So I'm, hoping to make this a part of every curriculum that I'm able to be a part of. On a practical level, I really believe as a designer in this idea of designing from the extreme to the mainstream. And that people in extreme societal positions can really contribute massively and are constantly designing and contributing to the world that is designed much better than if we only design for a certain demographic or because there is a new technology coming in which we want to bring to market. So I think if it's a people-based and really broad inclusive approach, it's a much better idea. And I think the one of the fundamental things that I think your mother brought to inclusive design was a shift from designing products and environments, the aspects that may be more closely related to universal design, but to really focus on inclusive processes that are empowering, that give people ownership of what they do, create a sense of place, sheltered workshops, for example, and that really flatten the hierarchy. I would think, that is one of the main contributions. I think now it's really transferable to other fields as well, because if we're, for example, taking our situation as humanity in a world in climate crisis, inclusive design also extends into multi-species considerations, considering ourselves as one of many species that the world sustains, that the earth sustains, and being more inclusive, to everything that supports us in turn, to seeing ourselves as a huge community of practice that needs to keep our planet going. And we need to be a more active and regenerative part of that as well.
Nataša, Lígia, you're all nodding quite furiously, so I'm guessing you have also something on this matter.
Sure, Laila. Well, in Sarajevo, the turning point was designers and craftspeople with disabilities believing that it could be done. And we really didn't know what we were doing. We were just putting our feet in the water and testing what could be done. And I think the model matured in the later workshops in Croatia, where we had, a way of working, a way of exploring more than a set way of working. We had a network of people that we knew we could count on.
The designers from previous workshops and people who knew people from the...
And, really passionate people. I remember Mirna bringing her huge iMac in that snow that you saw on
as in a desktop.
Wow. Computer. She was bringing it in the
Not
snow.
Laptop, yeah.
Not laptop, desktop computer, this size, in the snow just to get, her work done. We were all in it, for better or worse. And, some of the products are still selling, some are not, but the network is going on. And in terms of the most mature sheltered workshop project, I would say Shibuya Font takes the win. It's flourished in a way that we could not imagine in 2007 through Shibuya Font. And I, on the other hand, went on to teach design. And we have inclusive design as part of our first and second year bachelor program. It's not a separate class, but it's taught
within the curriculum.
Within the basics of design. And for example, Sanja Bencetic from Zagreb, from the University of Zagreb, will be coming to teach an inclusive design class in Sarajevo next semester. So the network is at it again. I, on the other hand, went into working with furniture producers. and into commercial design, along with working in academia. And I'm using, all the tools in Julia's toolbox to work with producers, because it's an emerging industry and it's one that's very important for our society and our economy. So in a way, I'm not in inclusive design, but I'm working towards, making products that are there for social and human individual well-being, and that are sustainable in terms of the planet.
Which is also, as Gero said, a form of inclusivity, that we often think of it as disability-oriented, but even with Shibuya Font, at our project, we work with mainly learning disabled artists and people with mental health issues, but it is often their carers and parents and support staff who we work with as well. So it's not necessarily just about the disabled person, but the kind of environment that is set around those people. How do you kind of, as you say, network and link them together to make sure the stakeholders are connected and all have a role really in the process. And I think talking about that especially, maybe Gero and Lígia, you could comment on this, but I think when in Sarajevo, we were able to communicate with the design partners. Although they were deaf, they could, speak quite coherently to us about their thoughts, etc. But from Croatia onwards, a lot of the time it was people with learning disabilities, 知的障害. So that kind of actually turned things on its head. How do you get a person involved who cannot necessarily consistently make something, as you imagine? In Sarajevo, if we discuss an idea to the craftsman, they will see a sketch and kind of interpret it in a way that we both imagine. But for example, with people with learning disability, this doesn't happen. One of Shibuya Font's famous graphics is of a cat saying, "I am a dog," because I had asked the artist to draw a dog, and he said, "Yes, I will draw a dog." And then he draws it. He shows me the drawing, and he said, and I ask him, "What is this?" And he said, "It is a cat." So, but then as a designer, you kind of learn to kind of turn your thinking around, thinking, it changes your perspective. And so I decided, no, my thinking is wrong. I, as a designer, have to interpret it. So I interpreted it as a cat that imagined it was a dog. And that's how I got around Shibuya Council's proposal that they wanted designs with dogs. So anyway, so in that sense, Lígia, and were there any moments in the projects you did where you had to kind of use reinterpret?
Well, in terms of business case, we didn't have, except Požega. Dinamatsuri didn't have that propose. But now I use that methodologies, and the way she was able to communicate, I learned about time, my time and others' time, the community time, and I learned to respect timing. And nowadays I work more with dementia. And with dementia, it happens all the time that I have to, get back and try to involve, of course, carers, families, and try to interpret some individuality behind. Someone could say it's a cat, but it's a, it's a dog. And I never had that propose with her because our collaborations, even 2019, she told me that I should come on August. And then we create the alternative futures, but never had that proposed. But she teach me that my kind of work should be paid.
Yeah.
She start to the power of saying no also.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. Don't accept that. And she, she was very critical, and also with us. That I know that she loves us.
Yeah.
And she was like, in the sense of she could be a mother. I used to call her my blondie mother.
Blonde mother.
But she always had that idea. I think she had that power of involving communities. So in all the types of projects that I was collaborating with her, or I was provoking her, or inviting her, she teach me how to deal with a lot of constraints. Even
constraints, yeah.
Yeah, and even with economic constraints.
Yeah.
Because in this kind of project, we always have the economic part that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
I have a few stories behind the scenes with her, but one of them, and she didn't know Portuguese, but she had Latin.
Yeah, she studied Latin at school. Yeah.
Yeah, she could understand perfectly the body language of Portuguese and some things that she could read.
Yeah.
And in the first project, I run everything. She told me that you have to talk with the municipality, but you also have to manage the chocolates and coffee and all the stuff that you have to prepare for a workshop. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, she understand that in the end of the workshops, I didn't have the total amount that Royal College will charge. And she told me, how much do you have?
Yeah. How much do they pay you? Yeah.
And I don't understand. I try to, now you will pay me. How much do you have?
Do you pay?
I never talk with her about that, but she understand behind the scenes that something was happening, and she was able. This is I think this is a power. She was a yo-yo also. She used to talk about
yo-yo.
Yeah.
Yo-yo. So yo-yo is a concept. Young, old, young, old.
She used to show Mike Jagger.
Madonna. Mick Jagger, Madonna.
Madonna is you have to switch a little bit.
Yazawa Kichi kana? Yazawa Kichi, and various people where you look old on the inside, old on the outside, but inside you're young, which I think described my mother Julie very well. But also you could look young and act old. So not what you see outside isn't necessarily what is inside. And
she was a yo-yo.
Yeah, she was a yo-yo, definitely. I mean, once she came back from work, she was a young old maybe, I don't know, but yeah, that was a concept that she would often say, what you see isn't necessarily the truth. You have to delve in much deeper to see the actual essence. And I think her journalism training definitely enabled that. Yes, and yes, I think you've been one of the recipients of many of these, how do you say, suggestions by Julia, would you like to do this? In the context of Japan, I think it's quite different.
Yeah. Okay, so she Lígia talked about the kind of monetary issue, and maybe one thing I can remember when I talked with her, the very beginning days of inclusive design. So I had the opportunity to work with a Japanese company, so they asked me to do the workshop. Then I thought, okay, maybe the budget, there's no big budget, so I made a small estimate. But Julia said, no, you should make a big estimate. It's not for your profit, it's not my profit, but it is to create a community. For sustainable community, we need the money to put the things go on. So I thought, I didn't have that kind of thinking, so I was so kind of surprised. But what she said is with a long vision. So I totally agree with her. But it doesn't mean I give you expensive estimates, okay?
Yeah, you're not expensive, but you're not cheap either, is what you're saying. I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think these kind of workshops Julia created were kind of step one, as it were, but she always had about step 5 in her head, and when step 1 was over, she would often, even though the workshops weren't in progression, she would always keep in contact, make sure how the progression was going, and so on and so forth. So I think for anyone who's starting a project and, or want to, just don't think as what you do in project 1 as the goal. It's just the starting step, and once you finish it, you analyze it, see what went well, what went not so great, and just establish it. And I think these things are kind of evidence, isn't it? So once you get that first thing going, you have a proposal that you can then use to propose another thing or another thing. So I think that's the way, I personally would do it. And if you can, try and get awards would be my, because if you're trying to propose something, it can be the smallest of awards or recognition. Just try and get those, and maybe it will continue on from a workshop into a more sustainable project. Yeah, so.
I'm a little quiet.
Yeah, I think, I'm doing all the work, Shin. I think you should.
Well, it's a lot of learning for me, in all presentation, there's a lot of workshop, but a lot of workshop is something on kind of superficial, but behind there's many coordinations or negotiations, community building, or friend making, diplomatic cake diplomacy. I like it a lot actually. Well, that's activism, I feel. So not only just about workshop or output, but all movements, passions, activism is makes this inclusive design movement now. That's what I understand.
Yeah, I think it's a movement, and you've got to see that you're part of that movement. And if you start becoming too not results-based, but if you get obsessed at achieving a certain result, that at some point it will kind of start to falter because you're comparing, what you have with what you want, and that can often lead to. So it's just about what's in front of you, and then thinking of it step by step. You think a step ahead, but you think a step, you're in that step as well. Yeah. So.
One more question here.
There's one more question.
New question.
This one here, isn't it? Yeah, so there's another question. I don't know who's, maybe Yas, you'll probably be good at answering this. I'm not sure, but what are the current trends and developments in critical users in relation to digital interfaces and digital products? Maybe Hua, also you can have some input into this. But I think in Japan, it's a lot about interface and digital design, so I think that's where the question comes from. なので質問が
クリティカルユーザーズという言葉が、このプレゼンテーションでもいくつか出てきましたけど、その、デザインパートナーという言葉でも語られてたと思いますが、その特にデジタル的なインターフェース、デジタルアプリケーションとかそういったデジタル製品における、クリティカルユーザーズデザインパートナーのトレンドについて、教えていただきたいという質問が来ました。
Everyone's kind of frowning a bit. Not sure if what yes, would you like to start?
Not directly about the trend of the critical users. However, in Japan, as you see, like big electronic companies like Sony and Panasonic, now they are advocating inclusive design. And Sony declared that they are going to use inclusive design approach to all the product design process by 2025, I think. So I think that's a big trend in Japan, going to digital products and digital services of inclusive design.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of some projects off my head. Unfortunately, I'm slightly tired, so I can't recite them. But I think technology has definitely brought a new phase in terms of communication design, perhaps, especially with people who are deaf. I mean, we're using this kind of technology here today as well, this auto-translate. And often when I speak with my deaf friends, I use these voice activation apps. You know, I think it is coming in the form of a lot of apps. You know, even if tourists traveling around Japan, you see them with their Google Lens. So I think in terms of apps, it's applications and digital platforms, it's slowly kind of merging inwards in the development phase. So it's almost not inclusive design. It's quite a natural phase to, you know, kind of use user insights in app development to make it more like these iPhones who have a lot of accessibility, which we certainly didn't have in Požega or Sarajevo.
Maybe some example is like a gaming industry, like a controllers, like for example, some game companies makes adaptive game controllers that can use for everybody. But a good thing is like a promotion video. In the promotion video of that product, it's not just only about showing the product itself, but it's about including the process, how they developed with diverse people. So the showing process is also very important. That's I think very big influence from the inclusive design history. Yeah.
And the customizability in terms of games, I think the Xbox, PlayStation, all are kind of good examples of that. But Hua, I think you're a teacher. You are teaching Generation Z, I am sure. Are there any trends within, like, when students propose to you projects? You know, is there a trend in like a leniency towards digital design or digital content, or how is it in the UK right now?
Certainly, I think a lot of inclusive design examples we use tends to be older traditional products. So that is one area we do need to update when we teach, because now students, what they use, what they are paying attention are quite different from, even just 5 years ago. One of the most interesting thing, your question reminds me of the last time I met with Julia. She was showing from her laptop. She has a presentation of the differences between inclusive design and universal design. But interestingly, the other guest, Professor Mark Ashby, he read my first year PhD report in 2002. That's 22 years ago. In my report, there was a comparison between inclusive design and universal design. And Mike told me, actually, it's not important to paying attention to their differences. It's probably more important to look at their commonality. That thing I always remembered. And Julia had, discussion. We had a discussion on this, and she said in Japan, universal nowadays, more and more people are more adopting that inclusive design as a terminology, because it does seem to be more relevant to the digital world. It's a degree of inclusion rather than make it useful for everybody. And one of the trend is, there's a lot of technology which has potential to make inclusive design easier because it can enable personalization. If you think about the Microsoft Inclusive Design Guide, they talk about this user. To me, that is a critical user. You use that critical user. It's relatively recent, but many years ago in the traditional workshops, these critical users are already used to challenge designers' conventional thinking. So I think in principle, it's still the same. It's just the application differ, and we do need to utilize technology, the possibilities of technology to create inclusive design right from the beginning. It's more about the mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with some of the digital content, like you say, Hua, it's a degree of inclusion and not kind of necessarily absolute inclusion, So I think this leads kind of the question to maybe all the design and the presenters here. What do you think is inclusion, essentially, from the perspective of a designer or a university professor, what is, because we use this word so much now, inclusion, it's everywhere, inclusive education, inclusive this, inclusive that. What is actually the essence of inclusion? I think maybe Gero, you can start off if you can.
Well, I think it's it's a really complex question, but I think it's I don't know. I think your mom would have looked at it in the way of embracing that complexity, and doing whatever is in our power to make things more inclusive. Making the world accessible in so many ways to as many people as we can. I think universal always sounds utopian, but I think it's everybody does what they can. I mean, I remember one workshop was actually not in the former Yugoslav countries, but it was in Hong Kong, where two designers were arguing, where one of them was developing this inclusive product, but it wasn't perfect yet. It said, well, I've been working on this for 10 years, and then the other one said, well, I've done something similar, and it's a lot better than it was, and it's helping a lot of people already. And the other guy, he basically he acknowledged that he didn't want to pursue perfection, but he just wanted to do the best he could, in the most effective way that he could to contribute to inclusion. I think that's also in my practice. I try to do what I can, and I try to put the mindset that Hua Dong was referring to into everything that I do. And it's not just in professional practice, but also in family life. When we talk about society, when we talk about politics, design is also a political act. It can influence society, human and otherwise, on so many different levels. It's not just about designing posters and toasters, but it's about how we interact and everything we do. There's this gentleman called Buchanan. He is talking about different levels of design, and I think design permeates from everything from posters and toasters to ecosystems. So we should just do whatever we can to be more.
Yeah, to do our best and to see our act of creating things as designers as always affecting someone, and questioning maybe how it would affect a person, and can it expand to more people, and that in a sense is probably the essence of inclusion, as you say. Lígia, do you?
Well, I think, no, it's okay. I think inclusive design can diverge in different contexts and levels. It's more, I think, it's more about creating equity.
Equity.
Yeah. In the sense that Julia show us, she works in that community in Sarajevo, where she understands that would be necessary for empower that community. Coming to Porto is completely different. So she analyzing the needs. Also, we didn't talk about that, but she also, when someone applies to the workshop, she do it carefully, look inside the portfolios and the curriculums to try to merge really nice groups and merge people with different...
Yeah, the grouping of designers and critical users. And I think equity didn't translate very well in Japanese. Equity is kohese. So how do you create the equality and equity within the process of the people involved in the project? Yeah,
I think is that she was really interested in the behavior, your abilities, your purpose, and she was really good to connecting this kind of people networking, and we are all together. And a few minutes ago, I received a message from a colleague from Portugal. She's watching us, and she's also one person that Julia touched in the way that I'm sure, in the way she practice design right now. So I think she have the ability to connect, but putting people in the right place, in the right group, to given the opportunity to to emerge.
Yeah, I remember, I mean, when I started to learn design and I started working professionally, we would often have kind of long Zoom talks or WhatsApp talks, video calls where she would be talking about, I'm thinking of matching this person with this person, but he's a bit grumpy and this person's too serious. So I think I will put this user with this more kind of happy designer, because then it might, so it was not just about merging skills, but merging kind of personalities together, so that you could affect one another in a kind of equal way. Yeah,
the results. And so the workshops, this kind of workshops are always, except the team leaders, they are always, it's like a blind date.
A blind date, yeah.
Yeah, it's a blind date. People apply, and some but you are mixing people together in 24 hours. Could happen a lot in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And well, she was dealing with that.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily always work.
Now we have some examples.
Yeah. It doesn't, but then you learn to analyze, and I think with myself as well with Shibuya Font, I work with 10 organizations at once. And it is, we are successful, yes, but that doesn't mean it's kind of succeeded and that it's all auto-running now. Every year I go back to the workshops, we analyze how the process was for them. Did you feel involved in the project? Are there any other people you think would benefit from this? And I think it's constant questioning, And I think in Japan, especially, yes, I say we because I've been in Japan now for almost 14 years, but we tend to go for that kind of polished result. So in Japan, how do you think that can be braked? That habit of, because I think that's been one of the, and that was interesting in your talk, that people interpreted inclusive design more as a philosophy, when it collaborated with design thinking, that's where it took off. But how do you think Japan can...
Okay. I think the word quick and dirty became more common compared to maybe year 2000.
Quick and dirty, yeah.
Quick and dirty. So, because Japanese people want to create everything beautifully, however, the process is important. So, we need to make something with the material at hand. So, that is one very important aspect of inclusive design, making together with the stakeholders. So, that's changed. And also, you mentioned about the philosophy, but I think it's a good side of the Japanese design. And I always say to Japanese students that there are two ways in design process. One is application. The other one is implication. So, for example, if we design something, it's easy to think about the variations of the design. For example, the size or the colors or something like that. However, it is more important to think about what the design implies. So that's it's about questioning the original theme, what we should do. So I think from philosophical side, Japanese designers are quite well trained to think that way. And so I think inclusive design in Japan, designers and stakeholders start to think about deeper way to dig inside. So I think that's a good movement in Japan.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I unfortunately have 10 more minutes left. Time flies. But actually, there's one more question here. So it's in Japanese, so I'll read it in Japanese first and then translate it. It says, Good design として販売するのがとても素敵だと思いました。しかし日本だとまだ障害者であることが肩書きとされることが多いかと思います。この点についてはどうお考えですか? So, as she said, I think one of you said to sell it as a good design, you know, the concept is great. I think it was you, Gero, or Lígia, maybe. I can't remember. But in Japan, unfortunately, you know, still being disabled is kind of like almost armor that kind of is on you constantly. And how do you think that about this, and how you think it can be demolished? And I think it leads to maybe Natasha, a good example in Sarajevo that we shared many years ago when we worked with the disabled design partners. So how do you think inclusive design can break this?
Well, there was a very beautiful story in Sarajevo where one of the disabled craftspeople working in Pismalik, she was kind of looking at Laila, who was getting out of her wheelchair and then back into her wheelchair, and you know, she couldn't believe that
there
Laila
was such a disabled person existed.
Exactly, that such a disabled person who was a designer existed, and she confided in Laila that she wished she had studied design or art, and Laila, you know, being the very direct person she is, just like Julia, told her, well, why didn't you?
No, it was very innocent because I thought I had this experience of being able to go to university.
And, you know, she said that she didn't know she had the right. So, Laila, if you maybe would like to take on from here.
And Gero and I were in the same group, so please feel free to butt in, Gero. But it was that point where I realized it's not necessarily the kind of the physical disability of the person that is disabling them, but more the environment and people around them, you know. And if you can change that mindset, maybe, you know, something could change, that people could get out of this narrative, that the first narrative is that they're disabled and the second that they're craftsmen, that maybe switching the order, you know, how do you do this? And I think there's a nice story, Gero, where we spent 5 days in a workshop together, and the first 2 days we were just convincing the team, You know, like, we should do this, let's just try, and they'll be saying no, people have come in, and they promised things, they never came, it never came to anything. And then Gero, I think it was the third day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, then
where it all changed, yeah.
Yeah, it all changed, and we've been, you know, not just talking, but making things and experimenting.
Yeah, quick and dirty, you know.
Quick and dirty, exactly. And then one of the participants came back from her home, and she basically she was one of the team members, and she'd taken a sheet of perspex, you know, of acrylic
sheet, yeah.
Acrylic sheet, and experimented with it at home because she was so excited, because she realized that she's a designer. She can design things and come up with ideas and you know, do all these things. And then she came back with this partly melted sheet of acrylic, which you know, was I would say, you know, just as beautiful as a vase by Alvar Aalto or any of the mid-century modern designers. You know? And it was such an empowering moment, and I think it was for her personally, but also for the rest of the team. And I think for that workshop, it changed the narrative. And I think this is, that you're mentioning narratives, I think this is really important. It's how we talk about, you know, inclusion, and how about, you know, which person, you know, has the permission or the ability to do certain things, you know, which I think are all boxes that traditionally people have been put in, and I think we just have to break up these silos and think more in terms of vision and potential rather than categorizing.
You know, disability is there, you know, it's just there for us, all of us, the disabled people, the people who are non-disabled, to accept and to find a way to work with it, you know. And as Julia always said, it's something that disability is something that sparks creativity. Disabled people are amazingly creative with the solutions, with the adaptations that they make to products, to the world around them, to their environments, and to the way they even communicate with people. So I wouldn't say that it's an armor to be taken off. I think it's something to be embraced. And what happened with the Sarajevo crafts people that you were talking about is that they embraced their disability. They understood that it was not something to hide, and that really they could do anything was possible.
Yeah, but and I think you know, Gero and I created many designs together with the designers, but it was only until the disabled craftsman brought her design that it kind of, then even as designers we knew that we could take part. So it's more about how can you get the critical user into the creative process, because I think often, even in Japan, I get asked to consult for many companies, and we talk about kind of interacting with the user, and the company just brings a Q&A to the user, you know, and that's just like, how do you get up in the morning? Well, I turn sideways, and it's like, you're not gonna, you have to observe what, you know, observe them and work with them and talk to them, and I think that's when it can change. And as even as a critical user, as a disabled person, you know, you have to have a critical eye and critical mindset. And my mother always used to say, you know, it's easy to complain, you know, it's easy to complain, but you have to come up, if you're going to complain, come up with a suggestion or come up with a, you know, and I think that's also needed on the other side of the design partner. And often, you know, Hua, you probably have experienced that selecting a good critical user is one thing. So like, I want to ask Hua and Yas, maybe, you know, what are the kind of essences you look for when you're looking for critical design users?
go
Yeah.
first? Okay. Maybe I know my answer is slightly offset. However, I would like to say this thing. Well, I think now in the social movement, diversity, people now talk about the diversity of people, not just disabled people. So I think it is a good timing to create a mirror to reflect who we are. We are all diverse, diversity of people. There is no ordinary. Diversity is ordinary. So if we look at the bigger mirror like that, then we can change our mindset to think different way. So I think that's an important step we need to advocate from inclusive design approach.
Yeah, so what is our role in this kind of diverse community? Just because you're statistically not a minority doesn't necessarily mean you are, outside the diversity box. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Hua, do you have?
Actually, Julia has a tip on how to select critical users. Some of you probably know, she shared with me one of the best ways to find critical users are to work with small disability charities, not the large ones. Because those smaller ones, they tend to be more energetic, more open. Yeah. And you often find very interesting critical users from them. And one of my PhD researchers, actually the first PhD researcher in China, Dr. Shu Yuan, she wrote her PhD dissertation on maybe the matching different matching designers with users. Designers have different personalities. Users can have different personalities. And through her studies, what type would work better with another type. It's a little bit like what Laila, you just said your mom are talking about. That is her intuitive interpretation, but actually through more systematic research, you can find some patterns. I should encourage Shu to publish that in English so many people can learn from it.
Yeah, that's my next job, believe me, after this conference. Yeah, and Cindy have some.
Maybe it's nice time for the final comments for the presenters. But one thing we want to share is about future. We many discussed about past history, how inclusive design developed, but we have future, and that's actually Julia Cassim always think about. I believe
design for our future selves.
Yeah. Innovation, design, provoke. So, I would just like to hear all of you. What do you think about the future? Maybe inclusive design, or you, or society.
How you'll carry.
And message to the maybe us mean like here, or all people who are listening now or future.
Who are thinking of pursuing this approach. So I'm going to go with the person who looks most panicked by this question, which is Lígia. Maybe. You've been in a panic since the landing in Osaka, yes, I'm sure.
Well, I think we have a job to do. I've been thinking about it, but I'm very lucky because Julia went to Porto in May, and we have plans.
Yeah.
One of them was she was going to be my agent.
Yeah, she was semi-retired, so she was.
Yeah,
she was my agent. Believe me, yeah.
And we have some ideas, but now about the future, I think we have, of course, we have a lot of material to join. I listen a lot of course, I knew about Nataša and Gero and Hua not so well, but I knew that also you find Julia in this May, I think, also. And but I think we should is something that we are dreaming. We should create something to maybe create a new idea of inclusive design. I think Julia always trying to pursue something new.
Yeah, she would always kind of try and analyze and how do you say?
Reformulating or, well, I think also the words are flexible and they change with the time. And maybe we should think about what happened today and maybe try to follow next steps of Julia's legacy.
What would Julia do? Yes, would probably be a good starting. But how about you, Gero?
Well, I think definitely, next steps to hopefully continue working with you lovely people and exchanging and keeping the legacy of Julia's work alive. On a professional level, I'm really interested in this intersection of inclusivity and a multi-species regenerative mindset, because a lot of the work that I do now has to do with sustainability, the climate crisis, and communicating all these complex issues. And I think this inclusive mindset of embracing both complexity and limitations and seeing both as a resource, and designing from extreme scenarios for the benefit of the mainstream. I think that's something that it goes through everything I do. I think about this all the time, and well, all due to your mother. So working with her, learning from her mentor has been truly transformative. So I'm hoping to carry that forward in the best way I can, and hopefully not alone. Definitely not alone.
Thank you, Gero. Natasha, you're writing away your answer, I suspect.
I'm taking notes on what people are saying and thinking a little bit about what I can say as well. I think definitely the next step would be to work on some type of legacy project because, universities change, administrators change, and work gets lost in this process. So Julia's work is kind of, fragmented all over the place. This amazing body of work that I have no words to describe right now because I'm tired is, my students would need to know exactly where to search in order to find various projects. So I think turning tonight's discussion into some sort of platform to put everything in one place would be a great way to start. For me personally, I would like to continue working with my students in the way that Julia worked with me. So pulling them to grow instead of pushing them. And just, helping them to understand that so much is possible and that the only limitations are in their own minds. In terms of my commercial work, I would like to dig deeper into understanding how my furniture can bring well-being to individuals and to my society. And as Gero said, I'm also interested in linking this to environmental sustainability. And I think it would be great for all of us to kind of think about what can be done. The term ikigai and this illustration of ikigai, what needs to be done, what you know how to do, and what you love. to do, and in the middle, in the intersection, is the answer. So it would be lovely if each of us could think about that over the course of the next few days, and maybe share their ideas through your emails or Fab Cafe.
Yeah, or Q&A later on. That
or
will
the Q&A later, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think even I teach students as well, is like, what do you want to do is always the kind of question I ask students, which students are not often asked, so that is a good point. And Hua, how about you, from the field of teaching and design?
Okay, I think I talk through three levels. Firstly, my personal reflection, and then to the designers, and then to the community of inclusive design. So my own reflection is, me and Julia, we both studied and worked in a different country. So we observe and we appreciate the difference and learn to respect diversity. I think that is extremely important. Secondly, for designers, I would like to quote Roger Caleman's statement, what people want out of life. So all the designers use our emotional intelligence to figure out what people want out of life. As if we are designing, we think ourselves, but everybody have their designs in life. For the community, I think I will just use Julia's own words as future steps. Onwards and upwards, take inclusive design to the next level.
Thank you, Hua. And so I think the responsibility in Japan, onwards and upwards, is to, yes.
Okay, so I want to start with the topic which I heard from Julia. Julia respected Roger Caleman very much. And so Julia said to me, don't follow small projects. Look at Roger. Roger created a manifesto first. Then manifesto of the projects, a big kind of picture. Then projects will come to you. So I like that kind of thinking. And for the next step of inclusive design, I don't want to repeat the same thing. However, inclusive design approach must be a very fundamental approach for all the designers and all the stakeholders to share, because everybody should be creators for our life. It means that we need to step onto more kind of different fields. And so two things I would like to say. One is, as you know, rational adjustment is now common. It's about social disability. So disability moved from medical disability to social disability now. But still, when we think about design out of life, it is not enough. We need to go on to next step. That is the fulfillment of the emotional design. So that's what inclusive design can do. Also, from the layers of the design in the society, inclusive design is very close to each individual needs and the stories. That is the beauty of the inclusive design. And because of that, we can magnify from individual level to the society level. So that's why we started societal design based on inclusive design. So we would like to include different diversity of people, not just people with a disability, but lots of socially excluded people. So that's why I said we need a mirror of the diversity. So this is how I think, and I hope Japanese inclusive design society will start from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that closed. We're just on time. We just passed 9, so it's a great kind of closing statement to the conference, I feel. And I feel we've had about 5 or 6 or 7 mirrors, maybe, of diversity, ways of viewing diversity. So thank you very much for taking your time. both coming here to Japan and from your homes in the UK and in Finland. We greatly appreciate it. And just to say, everyone did this free of charge. It was through the respect and love for Julia that they came here. So thank you again, and thank you Fab Cafe for letting us have this beautiful time of discussing and reflecting Julia's work. So thank you very much, everybody.
One last thing before the big applause is we want to hear also from you about your thoughts or insights or aspiration, anything from you or through this event. So there's a questionnaire on the YouTube link. There's a description part and there's a questionnaire link. So if you're watching via YouTube live, please check it. And questionnaire here, I will share the QR code later on via emails. So please answer later, and I will share also to the speakers.
So we can carry the kind of inclusive work forward. It will be great to know how you all have interpreted this and the things you aspire to or are thinking of or are confused about. You know, if you could let us know, it will certainly help us to develop more programs or conferences like this in the future. So thank you very much for your time. 皆さん本当に長い間ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。講談社の皆さんありがとうございます。Thank you very much all.
Thank you, Hua. Thank you, Gero. I think they're over there. If the audience would like to wave, 皆さんもゲロとフォアさんにぜひ後ろのカメラに手を振れば。はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。はい、ありがとうございました。Thank you very much for coming today. And ね、はい、はい、3時間すごい密な、3 hours。あっという間ですね。
Bloody hell, as one would probably say.
すごい密の高、はい。まだこの会場30分ぐらいは大丈夫。
Yeah, we're open here until about 9:30、9時半ぐらいまで空いてるので、ちょっとここでね、ご歓談だったり、コネクションしたければぜひ、
ぜひお願いいたします。
ゆっくりと、はい、お帰りください。